It does contextualize the behavior, but it doesn't make it right. It doesn't excuse it. It's one thing for your fans to take up for you and be anti-Black in your name. It's another thing for you to not say anything directly to condemn that kind of behavior. And it is absolutely your responsibility to do that. 2020 happened. George Floyd. And it feels like the only thing that changed is now the Republicans on HGTV don't say master bedroom anymore. They say primary suite. I'm really concerned that, like, the kids are not all right. That there are young people on the internet who are seeing things that are so obviously wrong and racist and misogynoiristic and just accepting it. Because it's like, where are we going to be 20 years from now? This season of Love Island USA kind of broke me. And I think you'd be surprised to learn that it wasn't even any of the on-screen happenings that have upset me the most. I haven't been thinking about Olandria getting dogged out and basically used by Taylor. I haven't been thinking about Ace self-producing, or the fact that Austin, the Trump supporter, got to just like sail his way through the season. That's not the stuff that's upset me. What's upset me is the online fan discourse about this season and how it has just devolved so sharply into something that to me is obviously dangerous and obviously sickening. But to others, it seems to be like all of a sudden they can't see. I think we as a people talk a lot about the rise of conservatism and how that shows in the clean girl makeup routines and the Pilates girl aesthetics and everything becoming an aesthetic. The increase of platforming of trad wives and pushing of that as almost like an aspirational lifestyle goal, which, you know, to each their own. That's not what we're here to talk about today. But I think the thing that a lot of people are missing is that, coupled with the rise of conservative values in terms of what women's place is in the world, is also a rise of covert anti-blackness, which has been a feature of conservatism since the end of the civil rights era. What I've noticed, and that I think is perfectly encapsulated in this season of Love Island, is that it has become more and more acceptable for people, even people who claim to be liberal, left-leaning, reasonable, not anti-racist, even not racist at all, to look out into the world and see a Black person, usually a Black woman, doing anything and get just irrationally, disproportionately angry. We've seen it with Angel Reese. I'm thinking of another reality TV example. It's been happening with Gertie on this season of Real Housewives of Miami. And I think the treatment of Shelley and Olandria from this season of Love Island USA is the perfect microcosm of this. Just 1 year out from last season, just not even a year into the second Trump presidency, and you can see the difference. Last season of Love Island saw two OG dark-skinned Black women enter into the villa, and sometimes they slipped up, sometimes they made mistakes, sometimes they said things that were a little bit rude, but the response to them last year versus the response to Shelley and Olandria this year is absolutely just like 10,000 levels of different. And I think part of that is because of the political climate that we're living in now, where covert anti-Blackness and covert misogynoir are becoming more and more acceptable. And I think it's also partially the responsibility of the third non-Black woman who entered the house at the same time as them and how they responded to the anti-Blackness that was being foisted onto these women. Look at last year, Serena and Janae. Once they left the house, the fans of their third friend who entered the villa with them, Leah, started trying to basically sow seeds of discontent in their friend group and criticizing them in very racist and anti-Black ways. Leah shut that immediately. She said, don't talk about my girls like this. These are my friends. I absolutely 100% do not condone any kind of racism or anti-blackness. Don't do it in my name and don't do it on my page. Flash forward to this year. It's almost the exact same dynamic, right? I can see the producers trying to recreate that for this season of two dark-skinned black girls and a non-black but POC woman entering the villa together, and they're thinking this is going to be our PPG-2. What they failed to realize is that the woman that they sent in to be the non-black girl this year was weird. Because since they've left the villa, even worse racism towards Shelley and Olandria is happening this year than what happened last year to Janae and Serena. And Huda has not said anything. In fact, what she has said is, me and Shelley aren't really friends. And if I'm not hating Olandria, why should you be hating Olandria? I just wanted to bring up like the very strong contrast. When somebody speaks up against wrongdoing that is being enacted in their name, you can see it die down. It has actually a real effect. And when someone refuses to do that, it's almost like writing a blank check to the people who are perpetuating that wrongdoing. And so I am once again getting on the internet begging y'all to be nice to black women. I'm going to talk about this last season of Love Island USA. Not even really talking about the season, more so just talking about how I felt since it ended and how like difficult it has been for me, like mentally and emotionally engaging with content about it since it ended and why. I'm also going to do an Olandria inspired base routine while I do all of this. Anything that I'm putting on my face, I will link in the description down below, but I need to say these words. I need to get them off my chest, so I'm just going to start talking. So I'm sure if you watched this season of Love Island USA without ever getting on social media once and then got on social media after, you would be absolutely plucked at who the public thinks are the villains of this season versus who actually were the villains of the season. For me, strong contender for a villain of the season outright, like up front, Zach with a K. He was weird the whole time that he was on there. You know what? I think he's sexy. And also, as long as he keeps that mouth shut, we don't see them veneers, I think he's sexy. And I'll stand by that. But he's weird. Another villain of the season, Austin. Also weird. Who else you could make an argument that Ace was a villain of the season because he was like pulling strings behind the scenes and like getting people kicked out and basically running the villa like it was the Navy. I think I could see people making a case for Huda being a villain of the season because of the way that she acted during the first half. She kind of cleaned it up a little bit, or like the editing made it seem at least like she cleaned it up a little bit during the second half of the season. So like I could see an argument for that. Based solely off of what happened on camera, it was never giving that Shelley and Olandria were the villains of the season. It wouldn't even give that Sierra was a villain of the season because she was very polished and put together when she was on camera. I mean, it came out later on, you know, that she had said some horrendous racially motivated things about groups of people who don't deserve it. Like, I don't think any group of people deserves the things that she was saying about, like, the Asian American community, or, like, implying about the Asian American community. But, like, that came out later on. But even then, she did not have, like, a villainous edit. Meanwhile, the entire vibe of the villa lifted as soon as she left. All of a sudden, the show was fun as soon as Sierra left. So clearly she was doing something. I don't know if it was witchcraft. I don't know what it was, but I feel like she was doing something. But to have watched this season of television, and I was watching from the beginning, to have watched this season of television from the beginning and get online and see people villainizing Shelley and Olandria from the beginning, villainizing Shelley and Olandria, and then people who were doing things that could actually be considered villainous or bad were getting passes continually. I was like, oh, I know exactly what this season is going to give. If we go back to the beginning, that second episode, I think, whenever Sierra came in as a bombshell with Charlie Day, when Huda was sitting down at the fire pit and Jeremiah was the only man who hadn't gotten up to say that he wanted to like explore things with Sierra, and Huda going into this, oh, y'all just some grown-ass babies, I'm paired up with a real man, good job, baby, for not getting up and going and doing that. And Olandria turning to her and saying, essentially, I understand what you're trying to do and I appreciate it, but this isn't the time. And Huda going, what do you mean? And Olandria saying, thank you, but now is not a good time. Literally smiling. And everyone on the internet then responding with, Olandria is a mean girl. Olandria is a bully. How could she do that to Huda? She embarrassed Huda in front of everyone. Oh my God, I can't believe Olandria would do that. Olandria is the bad guy. Do we not, I know there's like a literacy crisis, but like, do we not understand nuance and context and depth? Because even if we just go based solely off of what happened, right? And we don't even get into the nuance and context and depth. In that moment, Huda was bringing attention to the fact that these two women who she walked in with were not being chosen like how she was being chosen. She was bringing attention to the fact that their men had left them behind, basically. That's embarrassing. It's embarrassing that it happened, and it's embarrassing that you are now amplifying it and bringing an even bigger spotlight onto it. So like, she's bringing attention to and amplifying the fact that these women were left behind, essentially. Regardless of what her intentions were, regardless of if she was trying to like be nice and be a girl's girl, I don't understand how you could read that situation in any other way than that's what she is doing in that moment. And then for Olandria to respond, literally smiling and saying, I understand what you're trying to do, but it's a lot right now. Like, it's a lot right now for me personally. We can talk about it later. And to have that be read, the kindest possible response that she could have had, to have that be read as, besides shutting the fuck up, because I guess she could have just shut up and nobody would have been mad at her. But like, to have that be read as her being a quote unquote bully, oh, okay. And then the next episode she apologizes and takes full responsibility, and Huda wholeheartedly accepts the apology without at all reflecting on how what she did could have possibly been harmful or hurtful or embarrassing to Olandria and Shelley. I'm just like, I'm absolutely baffled, because even after that happened, even after she apologized, Olandria apologized to Huda, people were still calling her a mean girl, even though she didn't do anything mean from that moment forward until the Standing on Business challenge, but we'll get to that. Go through this entire season of television, Shelley and Olandria are there the same way that Huda is there, trying to find romance, trying to find love. And we see them time and time again support her. And something happens with Jeremiah. She's in a bad place with Jeremiah. Something's going on with her. And she's like nervous about something, and she goes to them and she cries and she's upset, and they hug her and they talk to her. She'll like try and vent. They'll try their best to listen. There were of course moments where I saw them and it seemed like they were like wandering off a little bit, but like, I know this is a get ready with me video, so sorry to spoil the look in the beginning, but there is some stuff that I wanted to say up top before I went off on my like tangents and rants. People are reading all types of bad intentions into these two women's actions. Honestly hurts. Like, it's honestly really difficult for me to engage with, particularly because I have some Black women who I love and care about who are doing the same thing. And it is never for its own sake. It's almost always at their expense, in favor of Huda. And that's why I think to talk about anti-blackness in this season, to talk about the way that Shelley and Olandria were not only portrayed but also perceived, we also have to talk about Huda and Huda's trajectory over the season and how she has behaved since coming out of the villa. I felt from the beginning that she might be a problem. Like, she threw me off from the beginning, just based off the strength that her entire chart is Virgo. That was never going to be a person who was for me personally. I'm willing to give everyone the benefit of the doubt, and I absolutely did that with Shelley, who is also a Virgo. So like, I guess that goes to show, like, the more you see of people, the more your opinion can grow and change. But it's just so hard for me personally to see people literally dehumanizing Black, because we saw Shelley and Olandria over the course of the season change and blossom and fall for people who fell for them back. And yeah, maybe the first couple of weeks they were a little like, it was clear that they were being very clear about what side of them they showed. But I'm a person who understands that people change, like that nuance is a thing that exists. And I don't form an opinion at one stage and keep that opinion forever. I think a lot of people went into this season wanting to dislike Shelley and Olandria, and whatever opportunity they got to reinforce that desire, they took. And similarly, a lot of people went into this season wanting to be obsessed with and living for Huda, and any opportunity they got to reinforce that desire, they took. And so it's like positive and negative bias. A small bad thing that Shelley or Olandria does is proof that they are the devil spawn. Meanwhile, a small bad thing that Huda does is not proof of that. It's just like, oh, that's weird that happened. A good thing that Shelley and Olandria do is a fluke. Meanwhile, a small good thing that Huda does is she's an angel. I just love her. Of course she would do that. I think it speaks to the rise in covert anti-blackness in our culture. 10 years ago, everybody wanted to be Black without being Black. Everybody wanted to listen to rap music and sag their jeans and have swag, and everybody wanted to be us. It was still dehumanizing because it was a fetishization, but it was at least like, felt like there were some people who were appreciating the culture for real. It's like the absolute opposite is happening. And we're seeing a lot of the same negative stereotypes about Black women, about Black men, about Blackness in general be perpetuated. But it's almost worse now because people are weaponizing like alleged like woke or left-leaning politics against Black people who have done nothing wrong. There's a difference between Black people doing wrong, a la P. Diddy, and Black people who have done nothing wrong and then them being put on the same level as someone like P. Diddy. I hope that makes sense. Like, Shelley and Olandria make one, maybe two mistakes over the course of the season. They are demons. Huda spends the entire season making mistakes, and she's an angel. Anyways, I'm going to let y'all get back to the rest of the video. I just kind of wanted to say this in the beginning because I don't want to leave it for the end in case people don't make it to the end. I know people don't always watch all of these videos. We saw multiple moments of them being there for her and being incredibly supportive of her when she was going through stuff in the villa, especially with the whole thing with Jeremiah getting recoupled with Iris by America. They were so supportive of her in that moment. She was upset because he didn't come to comfort her. And I'm jumping around a little bit, but one of the things that she said in her Call Her Daddy interview was like, he was only focused on himself in that moment. That sends off my sirens for like personality disorder stuff that I'm not going to get into because I've never spoken to her on a clinical level. But like, why would he not be thinking about himself in that moment? He is himself. It's actually not a good idea to predicate how much someone loves you off of the fact that they sacrifice themselves and put themselves last for you. That's actually not good. They should be good at prioritizing both of you. So while she was upset that he was off focusing on himself and how he was feeling, he wasn't even with Iris. He was off focusing on himself and how he was feeling. She was in the makeup room and Shelley and Olandria were telling her, it's not you. She was like, does America hate me? Is something wrong with me? And they were saying, it's not you. There's probably something that they're seeing that he's doing that means they don't like him for you. They were going out of their way when the truth is, America wanted to get Huda away from Jeremiah because I think it's because they didn't like her. I don't want to say things that are mean about people on the internet, but like that genuinely I feel like was the motivation at that time. So they're telling her this. They're saying, it's not you. We don't think you're the problem. It's probably something that he did, like trying to be on her side, right? And then we get to Casa Amore. We get to, this is just like becoming a video about like Huda instead of being a video about Shelley and Olandria, but like it's all so tied up together that it's almost impossible to talk about one without talking about the other. I think it's also, I think it's also because like a lot of the misogynoir and like major hatred that's coming out for Shelley and Olandria, the standard is being borne by Huda fans. They are carrying that torch and running with it. So I guess that's why it's so like wrapped up for me. And why I feel like I can't talk about Shelley and Olandria without talking about Huda. Because they're the entire basis of the argument that Shelley and Olandria are bullies is because of things that they have allegedly done to Huda. And it's like, okay, sure, whatever. Okay. So we get to Casa Amore, right? We get to the moment when everyone is supposed to be exploring, and Olandria isn't really doing that because she's like, I got a good thing going with Taylor. And I think the thing to say too is that the editing really was not on Olandria's side, because she has said in interviews since leaving the villa that Taylor was showing her things that made her think that he was really interested in her, when from almost the beginning he had said that he was not physically attracted to her. And we didn't get to see any of the things that he was doing that was making her believe that he was really interested in her. We didn't get to see him like holding her shoes for her when she was tired of standing. We didn't get to see the fact that he would like always make sure that they were still holding hands. The fact that he was bringing her like perfect breakfast order every morning and making sure that it was right. Like he was really going out of his way and trying to keep her interested in him. And so there was a reason that she was interested in him. But like by the time we got to Casa Amore, everyone was excited for Olandria to explore because we all knew that Taylor wasn't attracted to her, but she didn't know that. So her saying like, oh, I don't really want to explore, I just miss Taylor. Meanwhile, people are twerking in his face and he's making out with Clark. Like, it made her look stupid and it made her look foolish. And I think that was a deliberate choice of writing and the production team. Because we could have been shown the reasons why he thought, I mean, even without seeing it, you know, even without seeing why she thought that he was so interested in her and in their connection, I was like, oh, well, no, I didn't really get that until later. So actually that's not true. But like all we were seeing, and I for weeks was so upset about this because all we were seeing was her chasing after him, or it seemed like her going for him, being interested in him, trying to work on things with him, telling him, you know, I feel like everyone is ahead of us in terms of their couple. Meanwhile, we know, us at home, we know the reason everyone else is ahead of you is because he don't like you and he's not attracted to you. But she doesn't know that. Nobody told her that, right? We're not seeing the things that are making her see something in him. So it wasn't until she got dumped from the island the first time, at the end of Casa, that I was like, oh, he's probably doing something to make her stay so interested in him, because she doesn't seem like an unintelligent or delusional person. She seems like the type of person who really will go where she is liked and wanted. And I saw someone say, like, so there was a quote somewhere where Ian Sterling's the guy who voices over the show. He said, I would have bet money that Taylor and Olandria were taking it. Like, because he sees more than we see. He gets like a longer version and then he has to like write his jokes based off of that, and then he'll record his voiceover. So he sees more than what the audience and even what the host gets to see. Because the audience and the host basically see the same cut of the episode, except the episodes that she's there for. So once he said that he would have bet money that they were taking it and that they were going to like win the show together until Casa happened and until Taylor found his connection with Clark, that's when I knew. I was like, oh, he's doing something that is deliberately being cut out of the show that we're not seeing to make her look like she's crazy and delusional running behind this man. And I want to point out, like, she's not the only victim of the edit. Like, Huda has said in her interviews that there were a lot of things that Jeremiah was doing. Like, part of the reason that Jeremiah ended up getting dumped by the guys when he did was because he was basically doing all of the exact same things with Andreina that he was doing with Huda. Like, textbook step by step, doing all of the exact same steps. And the guys were looking at him and they were like, this is really shisty, that it seems like you just have a playbook that you use when you're interested in a girl. And they were like, we don't know if anything that you do is actually genuine now, because you're just doing the same things with this girl who just got here that you were doing with this girl who you said that you were like so interested in and obsessed with, right? So I think the first thing that we have to acknowledge is that regardless of race, reality television is set up to make women look crazy. Like, I don't even know if that's what like sells for real. I don't even know if that's what is like actually interesting to audiences, but that's what the reality television industry thrives on. It thrives on making women look crazy. You can think back to season 3 of Vanderpump Rules when they tried to make Stassi seem like she was absolutely fucking insane and ungrateful for not wanting to be on the show anymore, for wanting to like leave and go start this new life in New York City. Meanwhile, she had just found out that one of her best friends slept with her ex-boyfriend while also trying to get them back together. And this ex-boyfriend allegedly possibly gave her herpes, a lifelong STI, from cheating on her constantly. And she was just supposed to get over it so that she could film the show with everyone, right? And we weren't shown any of that. We didn't get to see any conversation about him giving her this STI. There was no conversation about the fact that he was cheating on her constantly. It was just like billed that like, she's crazy because she wants to leave the show now. She just thinks she's hot shit, when like there were good reasons. And there was also the whole thing with Sheena allegedly spreading around like revenge porn of her, and that also being a contributing reason to why she didn't want to be on the show anymore. Like, there were reasons that she wasn't interested, but what's interesting to the production team is furthering this narrative of women be crazy, right? I'm kind of trying to like go through chronologically to like reconstruct the show for you, but also to help myself remember. So not Shelly, what's her name? And meanwhile, Shelly is at Casa Amore exploring. Like, she by that point was coupled up with Ace already, so like they were kind of locked in, but she was meeting guys, she was exploring, she was giving it the opportunity she was supposed to be giving it, and she ends up forming a connection with Chris. Now, Chris is a whole other can of worms that I don't feel like dealing with. First of all, he's a Tory Lanez supporter. That's negative 15 points right there. There were a lot of things that he said and did that I understand deeply as a person who is very direct and also needs sleep, but like the connection that Shelly formed with Chris, he basically was like, I'm interested in you, I want to pursue something with you, not knowing that she already had a stronger connection back at the villa. Like, he knew that she was with Ace, but he didn't know like how serious her connection with Ace was. And the only other guy that Huda was really fucking with after JD started being weird was Chris. Olandria ends up getting dumped from the villa during Casa Amore, because she didn't really form a connection with any of the Casa guys. Nick ends up getting dumped too, and then that's when we get our first Nick Olandria date, which like, this isn't a Nick Olandria video, but I was literally a day one Nick Olandria. Like, when they were standing at the bar table and she said to Ace, you're so young, you still have breast milk on your breath, and he looked her dead in her face and was like, well, I'm 24, so no breast milk over here. I was like, oh, he wants her. I said, oh, I see something. And I was correct. It took a little while to manifest, but it ended up happening. And we're gonna get to the Nick Olandria's forced brigade, okay? He gets dumped, we get our first Nick Olandria date, and then they're back in the regular villa with all of the Casa girls and Taylor. And I think this is when it started to kind of come together for Olandria. Oh, this guy has been playing you this whole time. But she could have been way meaner. She could have been an absolute bitch. She could have completely ignored Clark. She could have pretended like the girl didn't exist. She didn't do any of that. She was cordial and kind to all of the Casa girls, which is more than we can say for the girls from last year, because the girls from last year were ready to smack down with the Casa girls. Like, they were not having them. So Shelly gets back from Casa, and they all find out that Olandria is, like, didn't end up getting dumped. She's back, and she's in a couple with Nick now. And again, like I said, well, this is a video about anti-blackness and Love Island, so we can touch on the Sierra of it all for a sec. Nick and Olandria had kissed while they were coupled together because they were like, I guess we should explore this connection and see what's going on. And then it's like literally textbook rom-com misunderstanding. I don't remember exactly what happened, but they're having some conversation and Nick said something and Olandria was like, oh yeah, you're right. I think let's just keep it to friends. Like, let's just be friends. And he was like, oh yeah, I agree with that 100%. And they both were lying. Like, they both were lying like shit. I knew they were, but I also knew it was because they were like very concerned about the Sierra and Taylor of it all. Like, they were very concerned about like Sierra or Taylor's feelings by exploring the connection that they had between them. Like, we're not really talking about the things that I think are fucked up about Love Island USA, but one of the things that I don't particularly like about this version of the franchise is that it's very puritanical. Like, it's very Sister Mary Catherine. We are married as soon as we couple up, and we basically have to wait for bombshells to come in order for us to explore connections outside. Like, Love Island UK is very wife swap. Like, it's very, they're switching partners all day, every day, going into the hideaway with people they're not even coupled up with. Like, it's debaucherous. It's giving Caligula. But Love Island USA is almost like a marriage simulator. So they were both really concerned about hurting the feelings of the people that they were in current couples with, because at that point, Olandria was really close to Sierra, and Nick is really good friends with Taylor. So they didn't end up exploring their connection at all, really, at that point. Which, of course, was sad because there was nobody else really in the house for Olandria other than Taylor. And after the merger again, oh yeah, I was gonna talk a little bit about the like Sierra of it all. So they like decide to kiss in soul ties, and Nick tells Sierra, like, Nick and Sierra end up getting back together and like recoupling or whatever. Nick tells Sierra that he kissed Olandria in soul ties, and she's like, oh, I'm so glad it was Olandria. Like, I'm so glad it was a friend of mine. But I think the unspoken implication in what she was saying there was, I'm so glad it was someone who I'm not threatened by. Sierra has this thing, which I clocked from the very beginning, of not seeing Black women as a threat. Now, they were really trying to push a narrative. I don't know if it was production. I don't know if it was just like the fans online, but it was almost like this narrative of PPG2 was like trying to be pushed so hard, of like these two Black girls and their non-Black bestie, and isn't it so cute how they all hang out together and love each other, whatever. But none of the non-Black women on this season were giving PPG2 at all. I'm really trying to think about it. I think the only potential contender was Hannah, genuinely. Like, and Hannah, Sierra made sure that Hannah was up out of there as quick as she possibly could. I think it's because Sierra doesn't see other women of color, particularly Black women, as desirable in any way, especially not to a white man like Nick. Sierra really fucked the whole game up because she didn't understand what was going on whatsoever. Like, she was not reading the situation correctly at all. Nick is a YN from Florida. Of course he would be attracted to Olandria. Olandria is actually the last person that you would have wanted Nick making out with in soul ties. Maybe Iris, because there was never going to get any action over there. It was never going to get active between them. But her saying, I'm so glad it was Olandria, gave to me, like, I'm so glad it was someone who could never steal you away from me. Whole time, this man has been obsessed with her since episode 1. Like, she was not clocking or standing on business whatsoever. And I think it's because she is like exists in this world that a lot of Black POC exist in, where they become just like absolutely obsessed with whiteness, and they become just like completely entrenched in white supremacy. She's almost the other side of the coin that Huda is. Like, Leah is not a part of this coin at all. Like, Leah is a non-Black person of color who, at least in my opinion, based off of what I've seen, has kind of like been able to teach herself things, you know, and like learn how to actually be an ally to Black people, and like how to actually live in community with Black women in particular. With Sierra and Huda, Sierra's on one side of the coin, being like going all the way to the extreme of whiteness, obsession with whiteness, completely entrenched in white supremacy, thinking everyone thinks the same way that she does because she's been studying this her whole life and has like given herself up to the white supremacist ideal. And then the other side of the coin are people like, let's say, these aren't non-Black POC, but like, for an example, the Kardashians, right? Like, Huda really reminds me of Khloe Kardashian. That's a comparison that we'll get into a little bit more later. But like Huda, there's a contingent of non-Black POC who get really into consuming Blackness and consuming Black culture the same way that their like counterparts get really into consuming whiteness and consuming white culture. And part of that is because as non-Black POC in the United States, it's almost like you have no place. Like, we live in a very Black and white society, and it's almost like there is no place for anything that is not Black or white. And the only remedy to that is to be able to stand up in and truly like love and embrace your culture and existence as a person who is not Black and who is not white. And I think Leah does that beautifully. She's Iranian and is really in that. Like, she is really grounded in that culture that she has, and really grounded in that understanding of who she is as a person, as not a Black woman and not a white woman. I mean, you could argue that Iranian people are white, but I'm not here to have that like discussion right now. So yeah, for Sierra, someone like Alandria was never a threat to her, because in her mind, well, Nick is white, of course he's gonna want me, a non-white girl who has studied everything possible that I could to be desirable to white men, and not a Black woman, because nobody wants Black women. Meanwhile, Nick is the person who wants a Black woman. I think Sierra played the whole game wrong, and she played it wrong by picking Nick as the guy that was going to be her guy, because she thought he was like all the other California model guys that she's dated and like been in situationships with before. But that's more so like, I don't really think the type of guy that she was used to was on the show this season. Like, TJ is giving, he has a whites only sign on his penis. Austin is giving, he'll sleep with a woman of color if Austin is like more so giving the vibe that Sierra wanted, but he still is kind of that like Midwestern country bumpkin kind of vibe, so it's not exactly what Sierra was looking for. I'm trying to think about who, I can't think of a more like contemporary example, so I'm gonna go with like Robert De Niro for like most of his career, or like Alexis Ohanian. You know, like, she thought she was getting this like modelly white guy who just going to be her white savior. Meanwhile, she ended up with Robert De Niro. Robert De Niro was never going to take you seriously. 80s Robert De Niro was never going to take you seriously. Maybe in his later years, he's gotten a little bit more open in terms of the skin tones of women of color that he's willing to date. But 80s Robert De Niro, he was living that life for real, okay? And I'm not saying that that's Nick. Like, I've seen his ex-girlfriends. I've seen one of his ex-girlfriends. And even, like, when he came in the house, he was at first paired up with Beldasha, right? But there's an aspect of it where it's like, yeah, he actually does see a black woman as a viable partner. Like, he doesn't have the same biases that you have, Sierra, where you're assuming he would never do anything with Olandria because he would never see her as a viable partner. And I think she was also banking on the fact that, like, him and Olandria would never pursue things because Olandria is very loyal and she would never, like, put her relationship with Sierra and her friendship with Sierra at risk in that way. So nothing ended up coming to fruition for Nick and Olandria when they were in soul ties after the, like, whole thing. And then once again, Olandria almost gets dumped off the island because Taylor decides that he is going to couple up with Clark instead of her after Casa Amore. And they have the decision to save one guy and one girl, and Nick is the head of the Olandria ain't going home team. He really said, did Coco explore with you? Did Coco explore with you? No? Okay. You know who should stay? Olandria. Like, he was not seeing her pack her bags again, which I love him for personally. I ever saw Olandria wear a blush this pink, but, like, I'm a winter. I need some, like, coolness in my face, and, like, I have orange blushes, and I just felt like wearing this pink today. Okay. So Olandria gets saved, and she gets to stay, and I think that's when it started clocking to Sierra that Olandria might be a little bit of a threat. Also, Iris having that conversation with her, being like, Nick and Olandria kissed. Oh my God, you're such a cool girl. Like, you don't give a fuck that your bestie made out with your man. That's crazy. You're so cool. She ate her up with that, honestly. What happens next? I'm just like, kind of like, oh, what happens after? Oh yeah, okay, so after we do the oh yeah, and Taylor's talking about she's gonna try and explore with me if Olandria's gonna try and explore with me if she gets to stay. She's gonna tie you down and force you to be interested in her. Like, what the fuck do you think this is, you fucking weirdo? Anyway, so after that, I don't know exactly what the sequence of events is, but at some point we end up having the standing on business challenge. And this is what we got in lieu of movie night. I hope it never happens again, because genuinely it was the worst part of the entire season. And as soon as it ended, I knew that the anti-blackness of the season was just going to get worse. And look at God, I was right again. So in standing on business, it's by that point, it's very clear, like, oh, has this been quiet this entire time? I'll just turn it up in post. By the time we get to standing on business, there's a lot of tension in the house. Excuse me, in part because of, like, a lot of things going unsaid and a lot of people sticking to guns even when it's, like, clear that thing, that, like, solution, that thing that you want, it's not gonna work out, baby. So this is, like, kind of the moment when Olandria starts to realize, oh, Taylor's been playing me. Like, his connection with Clark is way stronger. He's showing her things that he never showed me, right? This is the moment when Shelley starts to think that Huda is being a little bit fake, because the way that Huda is showing up with Chris, Huda brought Chris back from Casa as a partner, and I don't know exactly what all happened there, but what we heard was that Huda told Shelley, I'm bringing him back for both of us so you can keep exploring with him and I can have a partner so I don't get kicked off, basically. And from Shelley's perspective, it seems like Huda was being fake when she said that, because there's no exploring happening. Like, Chris is not coming to talk to Shelley, really. He's not, like, trying to pursue her. He is just, like, sticking with Huda. And Huda is, like, working on growing this connection. So it seems to Shelley like, oh, you didn't really bring him back for me. Why even say that if that wasn't going to be the truth? Which I understand, because The only thing that really pisses me off when people lie is when it's like a no stakes lie. Like, why are you lying to me about something that I was never going to be upset about in the first place? Like, you didn't have to say, oh, you're bringing him back for both of us. That's just an untrustworthy thing. And in post interviews, we've heard that like there were different little lies that Huda was telling throughout this season that people were clocking and going, that's not true. Like, you said this one thing and now you're saying this other thing. What's going on, right? So the tension is high in the villa at this point, and then we do Standing on Business. During Standing on Business, Olandria reveals something that Huda had told her in confidence, which is that her and Chris kissed in the Speakeasy, which is like one of the locations on set. She says, why don't you tell the class what you told me earlier? And it's about the kiss, which shiesty, snaky. I understand. And I have had my own criticisms about that, right? Sierra gets up and tries to reiterate the reason Hannah went home was because she had a strong connection. That doesn't make any sense. Shut the fuck up. And then Shelly comes for Huda and says, why didn't you just say that you were bringing Chris back for yourself? Like, what's going on? And then, I forgot that the episode prior was the heart rate challenge. And during the heart rate challenge, Huda had everyone in the villa basically agreed that Huda had gone too far with Ace. Like, whatever she did with him, we didn't see the full performance that she gave. Let me put on my light. If it's in here. It might not be in here. It's not in here. So never mind. We didn't see the full performance that she gave, but basically what we saw, it looked like she was shaking her ass in his face. So Shelly was also annoyed at her about that. So she finally like tells her, like, the way you're moving is very weird. You said that you brought Chris back for both of us. He's not here for both of us. He's here for you. And you shook your ass in my man's face. Like, what's going on? What's happening? What is tea? And the way that it was edited, the way that it like came out, it really seemed like everyone was piling up on Huda. Like, everyone was going after her during the Standing on Business challenge. But we didn't get to see, we saw like maybe 30 minutes of that challenge that was 6-ish hours long, 6 to 7 hours long. Which I can't even imagine. Like, the 30 minutes that we saw of it were horrible and painful. I cannot imagine being there for 6 to 7 hours, right? And this is when the Shelly, Sierra, and Olandria, our Mean Girls brigade, started to tick up. But it ended up becoming only the Shelly and Olandria are Mean Girls brigade because Sierra soon went home for saying slurs on Maine at her big age. So I feel really uncomfortable about this personally because the only Instagram reel that I've ever had be successful is one that I made after the Standing on Business challenge, where I basically said, like, Shelly, Olandria, and Sierra were giving the Rowdy Rough Boys when everybody wanted them to be giving PPG. And, like, I have acknowledged, like, people commented and they were like, oh, this is anti-black, whatever. I acknowledge that, like, I am making commentary based only on what I see on camera. Based off of what I see on camera, the behavior was giving Mean Girls. Not with Shelly as much. I just didn't understand what was going on with her and Huda. I think because they cut a lot of stuff out. But like Olandria airing Huda's business like that, Sierra lying about why they eliminated Hannah. You eliminated her because she was a white blonde woman and you couldn't have a white blonde woman in the house competing with you. Like, that's who she thinks she's in competition with, not other Latinas. Like, we don't have time to get into Sierra, but like, that is the issue to start with. I just thought they were being mean. Like, that's what it was giving. And the fact that that's the only Instagram reel I've had go viral, it has like almost 500K views, and I make like thoughtful commentary all the time, is upsetting to me personally. And I think that is a part of the anti-black agenda. I really do. I acknowledge that I'm only making commentary based off of what we see, but also based off of what we saw, they were acting foul. That's what that is. And then the next episode, they come in and they both apologize to Huda for Olandria for airing out her business. And I think it wasn't the next episode, like Shelly and Huda had their conversation a little bit later, but like Shelly and Huda ended up eventually coming to a consensus, and I was like, okay, I've moved on. Like, I'm not still upset about that because she has gotten over it. Like, they've apologized, she accepted the apologies, and I think she apologized to Shelly too. So like, I was like, what is there to be upset about right now, right? Other people did not do that. Standing on Business has become the like standard bearer for why Shelly and Olandria are mean girls. When, again, like I said, they spoke to her, they apologized, they cleared things up, they were good with her after that challenge. All of her fans have held on to the fact that they acted out of character this one time on the show. And I want to emphasize, I don't even think Shelly acted out of character. All she said to Huda after the heart rate challenge was, I'm really upset right now, and I don't want to say something that I regret, so I don't want to talk to you about it right now. Huda goes off and starts crying, and she's like, I feel so alone. The reason you're alone is because everybody thinks that you did something wrong. Like, no one's going to come over and comfort you when you're the one who's in the wrong. And the fact that Shelly's not ready to accept your apology, that doesn't make her a bad person. It's just like she's not in that space right now. People don't have to accept your apologies. You have to be okay with apologizing to people and knowing that they might not forgive you. So it took them a little bit longer to resolve their whole thing, which to me personally makes sense because the whole season, it seemed like Huda was in this competition with Shelly in her head as once Shelly paired up with Abe. And even for it to be like the one guy in Casa who she was interested in was the guy who was like showing way more interest in Shelly, that says something to me. In her Call Her Daddy interview, the one time that she really like mentioned Shelly by name, she's like, I came downstairs, I was wearing this outfit, I thought I looked so cute. Meanwhile, Chris is having a conversation with Shelly. Like, it seems like Shelly lives in her head rent free. But I'm not gonna get into that too much right now. Yeah, I moved on from the like, I didn't see Standing on Business and go, oh, Shelly and Olandria are mean girls. I went, they did something that was mean. Not even Shelly as much, more so Olandria did something that was mean, and I think that's bad, and she should apologize. And then she did apologize, and I was like, okay, I don't care anymore. But that's because I view Black women as human beings, because I'm heavy on that. So of course I would see humanity in her and in her actions, right? Oh, Standing on Business is also when Olandria finally cleared Taylor the way that he deserved. Like, she finally said, I spent all my time in this villa, like, worried about you, making sure that you felt comfortable, making sure that you were reassured. She cursed him out, basically. And then he unfortunately ate her up because he chose Clark over her after that. But no worries, because I think the next episode or the episode after that, Sierra went home. She finally left my villa. I don't think racial slurs of any kind are acceptable. So as soon as the thing about her came out, I said, oh, she gotta go. Like yesterday, she gotta go. But production was like really lacking on and taking a long time to send her home. We got an episode of her having a full-on date with Nick before she even left. Like, I promise you I skipped that whole scene. I watched clips of it after, though, because it became a topic of discourse. Because that man didn't like her. Like, he was not interested in her. She was telling him everything that he felt, and he would just basically be like, yeah. And then went back to the girls and was like, he said this, and this. Meanwhile, it was all stuff that had come out of her mouth, not his mouth. Very, very weird. So she goes home and Olandria ends up coupling up with Nick. And Nick Olandria, is finally born. Like I said, I was a day motherfucking one. I clocked it from the beginning. When I started seeing the edits on my page, I said, I know I'm not crazy. I'm glad I wasn't the only one. But then you start to see people online going, oh, this is so forced. I don't really believe this. So it was believable that he was into the girl who he could not articulate why he liked her, who she had to say all the reasons why he liked her. He was zoned out, staring off into space every time she was near him. She was clinging onto him, kissing him, gave him the cookie on national television multiple times. And when she left, it barely made a blip in his experience. Meanwhile, the girl who he's been staring across the room at this entire time, he's finally coupled up with her. He's cheesing, all 32 teeth showing every time she is near him. He told her she's the most beautiful woman that he has seen in his entire lifetime. And that's not believable. And what really irked me about the Nick Olandria's not believable brigade is I saw Katie Maloney from Vanderpump Rules. First of all, she's the last person who should be talking about what relationship is believable and what isn't. I'm not going to get into that too much because, like I said, I don't like to be mean to people on the internet unless they give me a reason to be mean to them. She's online talking about how at this point Iris and Pepe are coupled up and how cute Iris and Pepe are and how she's swooning over Iris and Pepe. Meanwhile, Pepe is on his third survival connection. And him and Iris just got together because the people who they liked better had already left the villa. That's believable to you that these two white Latinos can like each other, but it's not believable to you that this white man can be interested in this gorgeous fucking black woman. Okay. So that made me very upset to see on Beyonce's internet. And it is a part of the Misogynoir of the season because the assumption that Nick wouldn't be interested in her, no one is giving a reason why. No one is explaining why it's not giving. No one is saying, what is it about her that makes you assume that he wouldn't be interested in her? You believed his connection with Sierra when he looked disengaged from like day 2. He looked like he didn't even understand why he was there. Like he was under a spell from day 2. But you don't believe his connection with Olandria when he's been showing interest in her from the beginning. Okay. Why is that? Answer quickly. And I've had people in my comments say like, oh, it gives force because all they talk about is how they didn't notice that they were into each other. All we see of them speaking about is how they didn't notice that they were into each other. This is an edited television program. Did you see the part when he said that she was the most beautiful woman that he had seen in his entire lifetime? I don't understand. Like, I'm just confused. Why are you looking at them together and reading negative intent into his facial expressions, reading disinterest into his facial expressions, assuming that he doesn't want to be there when he has not said that? Meanwhile, he was actually disinterested in someone else and no one was saying those things when he was showing his clear disinterest in that other person. But it's okay because Nick and Olandria made it to the final. And Olandria got to live out her beautiful rom-com love story on national television the way she was always intended to. Now, Shelly and Ace got eliminated before the final 4, which plucked me personally, which to me personally is part of the anti-blackness of the season because why were Iris and Pepe there? Like I said, okay. I'm of multiple minds about it, right? Because I'm like a thinker and an analyzer. Have I been speaking for over an hour? Yeah, I have. I'm a thinker and an analyzer, you know. And I understand that like Ace was not likable to majority of the audience of the show. Like they just didn't like him. And That's fair, because he was annoying for a lot of the show. I'm not gonna lie, like, he was annoying at multiple points on the show. And he was, in a way, like, this creator who I really like, I think I'll if I remember to find the video, I will link it down below. But his name is Tell the Bees, and he basically said that, like, Ace was hoisted by his own petards. Like, he created this system in which strong connections got voted off, and then to almost, like, create a situation where he would be the only strong, him and Shelly would be the only strong connection left at the end of the season, and then because strong connections were getting voted off, him and Shelly got voted off. So I do understand that, you know, I do understand that, like, there are things about Ace that were very off-putting to the fan base. But the truth is the truth. This is a strong black couple together, and they got sent home before two people who had, like, just started making out, like, 2 episodes before. I don't feel the need to elaborate on that more. And also, like, Huda and Chris were in the finale, and they broke up during the last episode. Like, they did not like each other. It was getting worse and worse. And this is what uncritical stans will do for you. They will get you set up to be embarrassed on national television by a man who seems like he can barely stand you. Like, she went out kind of sad, honestly. And it's because these people voted her to stay, to get to the final by all costs, not, like, considering, does it actually make sense for her to be there? Like, this guy clearly doesn't like her. They were creating fictions in their head about how he felt about her. And then they break up in the last episode, and she's made Love Island history as the only couple to break up during the finale. This man has been saying for, like, the past 4 episodes, I'm tired of this. I'm not interested in this. This Huda situation has got me, like, really tight. She's pissing me off. I'm irritated. I'm annoyed. That's, like, embarrassing. I don't know. Like, I just, like, I don't like that people who are allegedly fans of her kind of, like, set her up to be in a situation to be embarrassed. But yeah, we're at the end of the season. You know, Amaya and Brian ended up winning. Nicolandria placed second. Beautiful. Now we're finally getting to the, like, post-season situations, the things that have kind of made me feel the most icky. And also, like, genuinely, I know it sounds crazy, but, like, I think I have, like, some form of PTSD from being in magnet programs my entire childhood and just facing constant, like, racist microaggressions and, like, people constantly reading the worst into my behavior, assuming the worst of me, constantly being told that I'm being too aggressive when I'm just passionate about something, constantly being told that I'm too angry when I'm sad, like, clearly on the verge of tears, about to cry, sad, being told that, like, I'm a know-it-all, that I just want everybody to, like, just all of these things that people have said to me over the course of my life, where I'm like, how do you not see my heart and how do you not see my intentions? Like, how could you look at everything that's happened and everything that I've done and look at me and say that I'm being a know-it-all? Now, mind you, sometimes I am. Like I said with Shelly and Alandria, they did do some things that were wrong over the course of the season. But the things that they're getting the most criticism for are things they either apologized for, or it's like, give people the benefit of the doubt. Like, sometimes I was a know-it-all. Sometimes I was angry. Sometimes I was aggressive. But in the moments that upset me the most, those are not the moments where I was trying to be angry or aggressive. Those were the moments where I was really trying to, like, I'm getting emotional, where I was really trying to let people know how I felt and how the things that we were discussing in class or a situation that went down had made me feel, and for the response to be, like, dismissive of that feeling was just so mentally taxing. And there's something about watching these two Black women being treated like this on the internet that like puts me back in that place. So everyone's left the villa, right? We're doing post-show interviews. We are back to the like real world, as it were. And I don't think Shelley or Olandria have done any interview with any major outlets except for Entertainment Tonight. But both Amaya and Huda booked Call Her Daddy. Amaya's interview, to me, was kind of like I don't know. It didn't give, really, because you look at Huda's interview, Huda gets like a whole lifetime backstory to explain all of the bad things that she did while she was on the show, and we didn't get any of that for Amaya. And I would have liked to have known more about Amaya's upbringing, her relationship with her parents, like what her life was like in depth before she got on the show, because that would also give context to some of the things that she did while she was on the show, right? But I'm going to talk about Huda's Call Her Daddy interview because in a way, I think the worst of the racism and misogynoir that's coming out of this show is directly because of her fans and her refusal to keep her fans in check, her refusal to stop the narrative in its tracks, whether she agrees with it or not, and condemn the things that are being done in her name. I would also like to say, like, I understand that there's a lot of people getting, like, painted with broad brushes. I've seen a lot of discourse online about how Ariana should apologize because she helped further the anti-Black agenda against Shelley. And I'm like, I don't see that at all, for real. Like, they're talking specifically about an interview where she was discussing what happened after the heart rate challenge. And she was like, I saw what everyone else saw, but based off of what I saw, like, Huda is very skilled at twerking. I would be a little nervous too. So people are saying she was like justifying Huda or Shelley's. She was like justifying Huda. That, I don't know, that people are saying that she was like insinuating that Shelley overreacted when she wasn't saying that at all, or at least that's not what I got from it personally. But I do think after seeing all of the interviews on the press tour that Huda has done, that there's a lot about her that needs to be said and called out at this moment, particularly because, like, and I think I would not be as tight about this if there were not Black women in my own personal life who are falling for this anti-Black propaganda. So I think Huda is triggering to Black women specifically because she lacks a level of emotional regulation that we've never been able to show up without putting ourselves in serious danger. Not only is it that we're like not allowed to show up like that without putting ourselves in serious danger, she's consistently being rewarded for being emotionally dysregulated when at times where Black women have shown up in the exact same ways that she has, they've been severely like diminished for it. People have tried to compare Serena crashing out once last season to how Huda has behaved throughout this season of Love Island. And the thing is, Serena crashed out once. Yeah, there have been people online coming out in support of her and being like, this is the most iconic moment in Love Island history. But imagine she did that twice, 3 times, 4 times. Imagine that was her behavior throughout the entire season of the show. She would be painted as even worse than what Huda is being painted as right now. Like, there's a reason that white people don't watch Love and Hip Hop. And it's not just that, like, they don't know who any of the people on it are. It's because I think it would be genuinely very disturbing to them and their psyches to see Black people act out like that on a regular basis. And they would not be able to consume that content without, like, going to racial slurs in their mind immediately. So And whenever I have seen Black people who have acted out in the ways that Huda has, they've gotten less and less and way less chances than she has gotten over the course of this season of television. And I have to say, like, the things that she's done in isolation, sure, I can understand. Because one of the things that she kept saying on the Call Her Daddy interview was, who wouldn't behave like that in my place? Sure, one time, twice, I get it. Calling people out their names, screaming across a villa, running around giving rancid ass energy off, constantly running to people for advice and comfort when you're like upset and crying. Just like her energy shifted the feeling of the villa completely, and you could catch it more in the first half of the season, because I think by the second half they started editing out the things that she was doing wrong so that people wouldn't like be mean to her, and then I guess turned to editing Shelly and Olandria to look evil. But like in the beginning of the show, in the first half of the season, you could see how her energy was shifting the villa. When she screamed across the villa at Jeremiah that he was a Pete, I can't say it because I don't want to get demonetized. You could feel everyone being like, oh, that was way too much. That was way, way, way too much. She was making people uncomfortable. Like, to rewrite it as, well, who wouldn't do that in my situation? Shelly and Olandria. They could have crashed out about 80 times over the course of the season. Well, more so Olandria than Shelly. But like, Olandria could have cursed out Taylor multiple times over the course of the season. Multiple times after he partnered with Clark. She only did it once. She only did it once because she is understanding of how people perceive Black women, right? So I'm gonna insert a clip of Huda's interview with Call Her Daddy right here. I'm funnier today. I got jokes. Obviously that wasn't a real clip of Huda's interview from Call Her Daddy because I, again, don't want to get demonetized. But like, for me, the whole interview was giving, I'm just a baby who wouldn't do what I did on national television. No one knows what this situation is like for babies like me. Like, it was hard for me to watch that interview because it was so aggressively triggering to one of my exes who had like a personality disorder that they were not doing anything about, that I was like, I had to stop multiple times, and I felt like sick to my stomach by the time I got to the end of it. What I will say is, like, the things that I'm upset about, I'm not upset. I actually appreciate a lot of the stuff that she said in the interview because it does help contextualize her behavior. Learning that she was a victim of childhood SA, that does help contextualize her behavior a lot. Learning that her family didn't believe her when she tried to tell them about what was going on, that helps contextualize her behavior a lot. And she's so brave for being able to come out and share that with the world and say, like, look, this is what happened to me and my family still doesn't believe me and I've had to deal with that. So I don't want that to be like misconstrued, that I'm like, oh, she's just like painting herself as a victim throughout the entire interview. She's not. And sometimes we go through things where we are victimized and we are victims, and it's okay to say that. It's okay to be able to talk about that. My issue comes in personally is that I feel like I have dealt with a lot of people like Huda in my life, and I want to be, once again, very clear that I'm not talking about her childhood SA when I say this. Like, I believe her. Period, point blank. I believe her. I think it happened. I appreciate her coming out and telling the story. I always believe people when they tell stories like that, because what do you gain from lying about something like that? Absolutely nothing, right? So, but what I'm talking about is, like, I've dealt with a lot of selective truth tellers, people who are selective truth tellers because of what they've been through in their life, right? And they will like calculate what parts they're going to reveal and what parts they're going to hold back, almost as a way of optimizing a positive response from the other person. And one thing that I will say is that this is 100% a trauma response. Like, this is because they have a lot of experience either not being believed or with people like not accepting the things that they say at face value. And so you have to, when you're live a life like that, when you've been through that a lot, you have to kind of like calculate what you tell people, because if you don't, it's like, why am I going to waste my breath saying something that happened to me when I know that these people are not going to believe me, or they're not going to take it as seriously as they should just because I told them exactly what I experienced in the way that I experienced it. You know, sometimes people can tell like stories about negative things that happen to them that really affect them deeply, and other people's responses, oh, that's not that serious. Like, I don't know why you're so upset about that. Or, oh, I'm sure it wasn't like that. I'm sure you're just blowing it out of proportion. And it's like, you have to get very selective about how you tell the truth and what parts of the truth you tell, because you need to be believed. Like, being believed and being seen in being, oh my God, what is the word? Witnessed in your trauma is an important part of healing that trauma, right? So like I said, I've dealt with a lot of people just like Huda who have been through similar things to her, and it's this thing of almost like thinking about justifications for your negative behavior. And her, I had this feeling when I was watching the interview that like her specifically, she was like trying to remember as much of the bad behavior that she did as she possibly could, so she could preempt the questions and like preempt what the audience might say about what she had done on the show. I remember specifically there's a moment where she was like basically saying like, me and Amaya are so close now, but you know, when she, you know, obviously when she first came in the house, I didn't really like her that much, and I might have talked a little bit badly about her, but now, you know, we're really so close, and I was wrong for doing that, but now it doesn't matter. Well, that's not true. Like, is it true that it doesn't matter now? I don't know about that. She was talking about her like former relationship with her baby daddy and being like, well, you know, he cheated on me a bunch. Well, you know, I did things that were bad too. Like, I wasn't perfect in that relationship, of course. And it's like, it's almost like she's saying I did things that were bad too to add credibility to what she's saying, to make it seem like she's taking accountability, when in reality she's like not taking accountability for doing bad things, because you're not specific about the bad things that you did, but you're very specific about the fact that he cheated, and cheated at this time and this time and this time and in this way, and like all of that stuff. So like, what is it that you did that was bad? That's a part of taking accountability, is being able to like own and say the things that you did that were bad. And her constantly saying like, I'm not sure what was shown. Like, did you guys see this? Did you guys see that? It's almost like she's trying to gauge like what parts of the things that she did she should have to defend herself for. And I want to like reiterate, it feels a lot like she spent a lot of this interview basically just like trying to justify how she was behaving and trying to take fake accountability. Like, this is almost why I hate that therapy speak is so prevalent on the internet now, because like, you can't be held accountable by people you don't know. You can't take accountability for things you don't feel bad about. And it's clear that she doesn't feel bad about the things that she's allegedly taking accountability for, because her response is, yeah, I'm taking accountability for it. Yeah, I did that thing wrong, but who wouldn't do that in this situation? A lot of people would not do that in this situation. Who hasn't called someone a word I can't say because I don't want to get demonetized? I haven't. You know, like, even when I've been texting my friends and like been in group chats and been upset about things, I haven't called people that, let alone like to their face, let alone screaming it across a crowded public space, you know. And I think it's also important to think about the things that she does take quote unquote accountability for over the season. You know, she's not taking accountability for embarrassing Olandria and Shelley during the first episode. She's not taking accountability for allegedly bullying Iris. Like, Iris was like, Huda was the meanest person to me in that villa. And she's saying, like, from her perspective, she was an angel to Iris. Like, she allowed Iris and Jeremiah to have their own process and to, like, feel their relationship out on their own. Meanwhile, from Iris's perspective, she felt like Huda was really mean to her. The things she's taking accountability for, allegedly, are the things that, like, I guess the things that she can get away with the least, right? Like, being mean to a man. Like, it's this narrative of saying, well, I'm learning from my mistakes. I learned from my mistakes with Jeremiah. I knew I wasn't going to do that with Chris, while also justifying those mistakes. You can't learn from things that you continue to rationalize, that you continue to say, well, it wasn't really that bad because of course I reacted like that in that situation. Like, if your reaction is disproportionate to what's going on, yeah, it is that bad. Like, it's hard for me to explain because I don't want it to seem like I'm saying anybody's feelings are wrong or incorrect. I don't think that. I do, like, honestly believe that, like, you can feel whatever you feel, but it's about how you react based off of those feelings. If your reaction from feeling like not wanted or not liked or like you were being played is to scream across a villa at someone calling them out of their name, that's not good. If your reaction to someone getting coupled up with your man, not even of their own volition, but being chosen by America, is to then go and be mean to that person, like, that's not good. You can feel bad that that happened, but then to react by being mean to that person, like, that's a completely different situation. Like, it honestly reminds me of this person I was in a relationship with who, like, and I'm gonna make a longer video about this whole experience, just stay tuned for it, but, like, they would always take their inability to emotionally regulate out on me, and it was almost an expectation that I, like, do the work of emotionally regulating for them. And so when I wasn't willing to do that, what would end up happening is, like, something minor would happen, something that's, like, not even, well, I don't even want to say that because, like I said, I don't want to diminish someone's feelings. Like, if that's how you feel, that's how you feel. But, like, let's say I don't answer the phone because my phone's not on me, or I was taking a nap, or I was in a place where I didn't have service. When I answer the phone or they send me a text message, they'll be like, I can't believe you didn't answer the phone. Why would you do that to me? And I'm like, what do you mean? I just didn't have my phone with me in that moment. And then they start calling me out my name, saying, you don't like me, you hate me, you're just like everyone else who's ever hurt me in my entire life. You're, like, insinuating that I'm a bad person, like, all of these horrible things that make me feel terrible about myself. And then I'm, like, trying to defend myself because, and I will take accountability for the fact that it's not good to get defensive immediately when someone is just trying to express themselves to you. So I'll get defensive and say, like, well, I was just in the bathroom, or, well, I was just, like, in the mall and there wasn't any service in the part of the mall that I was in, so I didn't get your call. Oh, you're trying to justify it. You're trying to make me feel like I'm crazy for having the feelings that I have. And it's like, well, no, you're not crazy for having the feelings that you have. I mean, I think that that reaction is disproportionate to what happened, but it's the way that you are taking those feelings out on me because I didn't answer the phone. Now, all of a sudden, I'm a traitor and a mean girl and a bully and I hate you and I've been lying this entire time and you're just gonna keep berating me even after I apologize, even after I say, I don't like how you're talking to me right now. Please, can you stop? Even after, like, everything that I'm doing, you're just gonna keep going. So it's like, sometimes you can have feelings, but that doesn't always justify how you react based off of those feelings. I think another thing about Huda for me personally and I said this earlier, she reminds me a lot of Khloe Kardashian. And I think in the way that she reminds me of Khloe Kardashian, it feels almost like because she's Southern, she kind of like lives in the 2010s. And like that was the era of like everybody want to be black, but don't nobody want to be black, right? And honestly, how sad is it that here we are in 2025 and I'm yearning for the days of black fetishization? And not really, but just like, at least when it was cool to be black. It's not cool to be black anymore. And I think she didn't realize that before going into the villa. So she goes in, and of course she's going to immediately glom on to the two black girls because she is imagining this scenario, basically, you know. But also like the massive amounts of love that Leah got last season for being the non-black girl in the friend group with the two black girls. And what she doesn't know going in, or what she doesn't realize going in, is how much can change in just a year. Like I said, we go from a Biden presidency to a Trump presidency, and now all of a sudden black is whack. So she like gets close to Shelly and Olandria, and I think what she wanted from them is mammies. What she wanted from them was counselors. She wanted two black girl sidekicks in the rom-com of her finding the next father of her children on reality television. And they sensed that in her. Like, we're not idiots. We're not dumb. Just because you watch a lot of movies where black women are sidekicks doesn't mean that we enjoy taking up that space in people's lives in the real world. And it doesn't mean that we can't clock someone who's trying to cast us in that role from a mile away. And like, you can see at the beginning of the show, they're entertaining it for a bit, but once it starts to become clear that she's not reciprocating, like this is not a reciprocal friendship, this is basically a relationship where like, you come to me for counseling, and then when I'm in a good place and I'm feeling good, I come to you and we like hee and ha ha, but then if I actually need any support, you're not the person who's gonna be there for me, right? You're not showing up for me in the way that I am expected to show up for you. And so like over the course of the season, you see Shelly and Olandria kind of pull away from her and start to hang out with Sierra more. And like I've said many a time, I think Sierra is responsible for the rancid ass vibes in the villa. And I think together, the three of them became the Rowdy Rough Boys. And then as soon as she left, they became like normal again. They went back to being the Shelly and Olandria that I loved from the beginning of the show. But like, it seems like as soon as they stopped entertaining Huda's attempts to turn them into like on-the-go therapists, she just started going to psych more and more and like talking to the people in psych on the show instead of like trying to continue to have Shelly and Olandria fulfill that role for her. And in her Call Her Daddy interview, she talks a lot about being quote unquote alone in the villa. She's like, I had no one in that villa. Like no one was on my side. I was alone. But then she also mentions that like her and Taylor are besties and her and Nick are besties, which me personally, I think that's a little bit delusional. Like that man interacts with her like she's a patient and he's a nurse. It's not giving besties to me personally, but I can be wrong about things. But then she'll go in another breath and say, oh, I was so alone. And then she'll be like, me and Amaya were besties. Like Amaya, at first we had our like little things, but you had your little things, we'll say, because it wasn't both of you. But now she's like, that woman, she just gets me. She's like my other half. All of a sudden, now that we're out of the villa, she is besties with Amaya, and it's me and Shelly, we're not really friends, we're not really close, and if I'm not hating on Olandria, why should you? Once again, these are all just like my opinions. She, like I said, it feels like she wanted mammies, and Shelly and Olandria were not going to give that to her the same way that they were not going to give America caricatures of themselves. And as soon as she realized that, she was like, ugh. But then, at the end of the show, even, she's still clinging on to like this relationship with Olandria and Nick, who placed second. But I think she gets out of the villa and she realizes people aren't really fucking with Shelly and Olandria. They're really fucking with Amaya. And Amaya is giving her the like therapy and counseling and whatever that Shelly and Olandria have refused to give her to this point. So of course, now Amaya is the bestie. I think Amaya is just like a very nurturing person. You know, she's a nurse and she chose to do that, like, on her own. I think I would be a nurse if I wasn't so freaked out by blood, honestly. So of course Huda loves her because she naturally wants to do the thing that Huda requires of people who are close to her. She's willing to mother Huda in a way that Shelly and Olandria just weren't. I think there's another layer of it too, though, which is jealousy. Jealousy that she masked from the beginning as, oh, we're sisters. Because if we're sisters, we're not fighting. We're like not on the same playing field. We're not fighting for the same men. There's an expectation of how we're going to act around each other. And it's notable that Huda from the beginning was the one who was pushing this fake ass sisterhood thing, this like being a quote unquote girl's girl thing, when genuinely she's nothing like that. She's nothing of the sort. For her to go on Call Her Daddy and say that she was attracted to Ace and she felt like there was sexual tension between them, this man who is fully in a relationship with someone who was your sister just 2 weeks ago, like, that's weird. That's fucking weird. So you knew exactly what you were doing when you did the heart rate challenge. The coy little smile that she had on her face when Alex mentioned that Ace might have been in her likes once upon a time. I don't know if that's true. That may be AI. He might be trying to like disavow that now, but you know, I never know. I don't know it's true. Admitting basically that she was attracted to him. Now she's like, it's giving that she's like a little bit obsessed with Nick. And it's almost like, to me, like, it seems like she is jealous that these two girls who were supposed to be her rom-com sidekicks, because she has mentioned herself being very like caught up in the quote unquote like fairy tale romance of it all. These two girls who were supposed to be her rom-com sidekicks ended up leaving the villa with men who are attractive. And not only that, but like they were in the villa with those men and the men were showing them consistently how much they liked them, validating them, telling them how beautiful they were, setting up cute dates for them, showing them basically that they valued them, right? And Huda wasn't getting that from Jeremiah. She wasn't getting that from Chris. She wasn't getting that from anyone who she was coupled up with on the show. And she mentions multiple times that that was like a sticking point for her, that she didn't like that the guys that she was in, that she didn't like that Jeremiah was not showing her how much he liked her. Like he would say, oh yeah, I have this plan and this plan and this plan. And she was waiting around and it would never happen. And she said multiple times on the show when she was coupled up with Chris, like, I like my guys to be all over me. Like I like them to just be touching me, holding my hands, like grabbing me. And he was not willing to do that. Now Olandria is with a guy who said she's the most beautiful woman he's ever seen in his lifetime. And Shelly's with the king of showing how he feels. Like all he did the whole season was plan cute dates. Ace, I mean. So for me personally, it's giving that she was jealous of them. She was jealous of them when she came in. She tried to get over it by like forcing them into this fake ass sisterhood, because if you're in a sisterhood with someone, you do have a level of ownership over them. Like they are beholden to you in a way because they are expected to behave kindly to you because they are your quote unquote sister, right? And then when the sisterhood fell apart because she was being weird, it's now I'm clocking that it seems like she is jealous that they not only ended up with men, but ended up with men that do the things that she wants men to do for her. And they're doing them for these women without the women even having to ask. Shelly didn't have to ask Ace to plan a date for her once. Olandria didn't have to ask Nick to compliment her once. She was asking Taylor to do all of that stuff. But when it came to Nick, she's not asking him to post Nick Olandria edits. She's not asking him to be in people's comments protecting her. She's not asking him to do any of that. He's just doing it for her. And that's exactly what Huda expressed that she wanted. And I think she's absolutely plucked that they got it and she didn't. I'm just gonna say this. I just like, genuinely this narrative that she was bullied coming out now, I don't know, or that she was like isolated or alone on the island. Just like, it's so harmful to me for her to be insinuating that she was left out and the girls weren't fucking with her. Here's the thing that I'm gonna say. Maybe if you're not making friends, it's because you're weird. Really sit on that and think about that. Like, we can accept that the male loneliness epidemic is a male being weird epidemic. Maybe people are lonely sometimes because they're fucking weird, and you need to stop being weird, and then people will want to be friends with you. Stop being weird, and then people will want to be friends with you. And it's actually a lot easier than you think. Everything that you think to do naturally, do the opposite of that. And then maybe people will want to be friends with you. And it's not to say don't be yourself. Be yourself, but don't make everything about yourself. Don't be running around the entire villa crying all the time, looking for shoulders to cry on, and then not show up for people when they need that same support. Actually, let me not say that, because we did see her being like supportive to the girls at times. Don't be twerking in the faces of the men who are partnered with your alleged sisters. Don't switch up on those same alleged sisters for no discernible reason. Then maybe you'll have some friends. I think she is really jealous of Shelly and Olandria. Genuinely, I think a lot of people are really jealous of Shelly and Olandria. I think a lot of the viewership is really jealous of them. These are two gorgeous Black women who now basically get like packaged influencer careers served to them on a platter in a package, who went on national television, and Shelly specifically had men falling all over themselves to partner with her, and she didn't even have to lift a finger. She didn't have to do anything. All she did was show up. Olandria, she did experience a humiliation ritual through being partnered with Taylor, but they say that's the price of fame. And she's gonna parlay that into what? Brand deals, modeling, appearances, other being on the traders, acting if she wants to, dancing if she wants to, singing if she wants to. She can do literally whatever she wants. And she left the villa with the sexiest hot white man that was in there. She won. And people get so mad when you say that they are jealous of Black women. They get so mad because they're like, why would I be jealous of a stupid, ugly monkey? That's whatever anyone says to me when I say, I think you're jealous of that Black woman. All I hear is, why would I be jealous of a stupid, ugly monkey? It's giving that you're jealous. If it walks like a duck and talks like a duck, it is a duck. I don't know what you want me to say. And I think it's this thing where people have this like subconscious need to be close to Black women to almost like consume us, right? Because they want to like unzip their skin and live inside of a Black woman. And it's that thing that I said earlier of it being difficult as a non-Black person of color to find a place in the United States. So like if the closest that you're going to get as a Palestinian Jordanian woman in the US is Black, then yeah, you're going to go towards Blackness. But instead of it being like a real celebration of and understanding of and humanization of Black people, it's a consumption. It's how many Black men can I fuck? How many Black women can I turn into my personal therapist? How many Black babies can I give birth to until I will become a person? But like your personhood and your selfhood and your self-love is actually found in embracing and loving the culture that you have and that you came from and showing it off in all of its beauty. Like you might want to be close to Blackness to find a way to like justify your own existence, but that doesn't mean that you don't also operate in and thrive under the same systems of anti-Blackness that oppress the very same Black people that you claim to love so much. It's the Khloe Kardashian of it all for me personally. Like this is a throwback for my Gen Z millennial cusps / millennials, but does anybody remember when Khloe Kardashian was besties with Trina? Like they were going out all the time, they were hanging out together, they were so close. And then Trina started dating French Montana, and then French Montana cheated on Trina with Khloe Kardashian. She can never be Trina, but she can fuck Trina's man. She can never be a Black woman, but she can have 2 Black babies with this Black man who likes to cheat on her all the time. And she can be mad at the Black girl that he allegedly cheated on her with, even when that girl is saying, he coerced me, he put me in a situation where I felt very uncomfortable. She doesn't hear any of that. All she hears is, you stole my man from me. Because a Black woman can never be a victim. Like, even if you call a Black woman friend, if you're operating on this kind of like anti-Black consumptionist mindset that I see Huda to be operating on, that the Kardashian women are operating on, even as they turn towards whiteness, seeing a Black woman have what you want will cause a level of dissonance. Seeing her be wifed, be chosen, be loved out loud, complimented, get everything she wants from a partner without even having to ask for it, that will cause a level of dissonance. It's like, why is she getting to have all of these things when everything society is tells me that she will never deserve it? And then that's when you get fucked up, because it's hard for them to admit that they're jealous of a Black woman. What can happen is they start to think, if I just have what she has, everything that she has, the clothes she has, the house she has, the skin color she has, the hair type she has, the hair texture she has, the man she has, then I will get as close to being her without having to be Black. And not only that, but I'll get over my jealousy while also putting that Black woman back in her place. But that's not what ends up happening, because the problem is not the Black women. The problem is systems of oppression that you have internalized. Part of the reason I struggled so much with this season of Love Island, watching people who look like me constantly be misunderstood, when to me, a person who is capable of empathizing with them because I've had my actions and intentions misunderstood because of what I look like. To me, it's clear what they're doing, and what they're doing is nothing like what people are assuming that they're doing. To see Shelley and Olandria be torn down as mean girls, to see people like Katie Maloney get on Nick Viall's podcast and say, you know, they were just so inauthentic this season. It was hard to watch this season because some people were being so inauthentic, specifically Shelley and Olandria. And for her to say, well, we saw a glimpse of Olandria's authentic self during Standing on Business, but everything out of that was just so curated and so polished. It's painful, because Black women come on reality TV and we are our authentic selves. And if that authentic self is not meme-worthy like Tiffany New York Pollard or Nene Leakes, we're deemed to be boring or calculated. If we come on reality TV shows and we're calculated about what we show and how we react because we understand the way that the world pathologizes the actions of Black women, even when they are justified, we're torn down for being so calculated and so quote unquote like closed off or fake. It's a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. And I think I'm particularly plucked by what Katie Maloney said, because her insinuation is basically the only time that Olandria was really herself was when she was angry. When there were so many moments over the course of the season where she was exactly who she is. She was funny and kind, listening to and giving counsel to all of the islanders, trying her hardest to get Taylor to engage in their relationship the way that he claimed to be interested in. Finally, when she coupled up with Nick, you get to see her be like soft and nervous and like be her shy, reserved self. And the moments where she starts to realize that she's kind of falling for him are so sweet and fun to watch. But this is the same person who said, I don't believe Nick Olandria. Like, it's hard for me to look at how the way that Olandria looked at Nick, like how it changed over the course of the season, and think that that's fake. It's hard for me to look at the way that Nick spoke to her and complimented her and was kind to her and was always holding her hand and always helped her up and down when she was like climbing stairs or going into or getting out of soul ties, and think, oh, this is fake. It's hard for me to look at how she built her friendship with Shelley, think, oh, this is a fake curated version of a human being. I could see that take after the first couple of weeks, but here we are at the end of the show and you still think she was fake and you were allegedly watching the show until the end. I think Shelley just is like that. I think with Shelley, like, it's a thing of the edit. She said she was the one in the house who cried the most. We saw her cry maybe twice on the season, right? Like, the producers and the editors were clearly not interested in showing the fullness of who Shelley is as a person. That's not about her being calculated. That's about her not getting the opportunity to show up as herself fully. People are reading all types of bad intentions into these two women's actions. Honestly hurts. Like, it's honestly really difficult for me to engage with, particularly because I have some Black women who I love and care about who are doing the same thing. And it is never for its own sake. It's almost always at their expense in favor of Huda. And that's why I think I wanted to say this because I just saw a TikTok from a creator who was basically saying, like, Huda lied in her Call Her Daddy interview when she said that the reason Pepe didn't explore her is because she was so locked in with Jeremiah, when it was clear that he was never interested in her and he never was going to want to explore her. I wouldn't necessarily say that she lied, maybe misrepresented or misremembered in her favor. But it got me thinking. I think, and I say this with peace and love in my heart, I think Huda is a non-Black woman of color who is used to having to do the bare minimum for male attention because simply by virtue of being not a Black woman, she's already considered to be like a 7 wherever she's from. And the fact that she's actually pretty on top of that, now she's up to 10 status. So coming from the context that she comes from, and I say this because I have seen this dynamic with my own 2 eyes living in like a border state, like a northern border state, Maryland. If clapped non-Black women are getting their behavior excused, their quote unquote craziness excused, their partners are completely ignoring what their actual personalities are because that man's only requirement for a partner is that she be, like Jeremiah said, Spanish/foreign looking. If that's happening to clapped women, imagine what a pretty girl can get away with in a context like that. And Huda, I'll say again, is gorgeous. I think she is a Charlotte, North Carolina 10. And in the villa, it was the first experience she had where people actually looked at her personality and looked at how she was acting and said, I don't care how pretty this girl is, I don't want to engage with her because of her personality and how she's acting. That doesn't happen in places like where I come from. The things that I could tell you about the experiences my sister had in high school, the experiences that I had in high school, where like girls were clapped, girls were mean, girls were rude to their boyfriends. They would like yell at them in public. And if they were dating like a Black man or a man of color whose only criteria for a partner is foreign/Spanish looking, he was riding that thing till the wheels came off. A lot of the times, those girls were the ones who broke up with them, not the other way around. When you're used to coming from a context like that where you could basically do anything and it'll get forgiven because beautiful, it's like surprising the first time that someone says, actually no, the way that you're acting right now is throwing me off and I don't really want to be in a relationship with you because of that. Now, I think what happened with Chris is that his first criteria for a partner is someone who Spanish or foreign looking. I don't really believe that he was ever fully interested in Shelly. He was not interested in Shelly insofar as he was not going to look like a dumbass on national television behind a Black woman. That's what I'll say. Behind any woman, but especially not a Black woman. I think what happened with Huda is he saw how she acted. He just thought that he could change her. He thought he could fix her. He thought he could tame her. And as soon as he realized that that was not going to be what happened, he disengaged. And this was like the tame version of her. She was like working on herself clearly towards the end of the season. I think she's used to getting away with whatever with these men. She's not realizing like you're not in Charlotte, North Carolina where like the standard is just be pretty and Spanish foreign looking and you get whatever you want. That's my 2 cents. The thing about Huda is I can have empathy for everything that she's been through and everything that she's gone through in her life. And she can explain all of it to contextualize some of the behavior that she showed on TV. And like, it does contextualize the behavior, but it doesn't make it right. It doesn't excuse it. I wonder if the men who she was acting out against were white, if people would still be so quick to say, oh no, it's fine, you know, she's been through so much in her life, we should just, everybody's just overreacting to the way that she's behaving. Like, if she was doing all this to Austin, would people still be saying that? I want to be clear that I'm not insinuating that Huda is an abuser. I just am making this comparison because it's the way that makes the most sense to me. Like, my last relationship was so abusive. And that person, like mentally and emotionally, and that person had been through a lot in their life, like 7 lifetimes worth of trauma that person had been through. Does it make it any less wrong what they did to me? Does it mean that I should have been treated like that? Does having that context excuse the behavior? No, it doesn't. I understand that people go through things and people have bad experiences in life, but it doesn't make it okay to treat people poorly based off of that. If you have something going on with your mental health, then it's your responsibility to take care of that so you're not taking it out on other people. And Huda has said, like, I have a therapist, I'm in therapy all the time, I'm not mentally unwell. I'm sure if I was, my therapist would tell me, baby, just based off of what I've seen of you, you might want to get a new therapist. That's all I'm going to say. So in terms of like final thoughts to wrap up this video, I'm just like, I feel really sad right now. I feel kind of the opposite of how I felt at the end of the last season of Love Island. Like, I felt so excited and uplifted. You know, Serena and Cordell had just won. Janae found her happy ending. My Angolan cousin Miguel found his happy ending with Leah. Like, it seemed like everything was great. And now here I am at the end of this season. And I just, like, the more content I see, the sadder and more down I feel about the whole situation. I tried. Like, I really did try to give Huda the benefit of the doubt over the course of the season. I've made a bunch of TikToks, like, saying I understand where she's coming from. Sure, she's a crash out. Sure, this is happening, but, like, I kind of get it. A lot of the women who are criticizing her are very misogynistic. So now that we are almost at the end of this press run and having seen how she's moved since leaving the villa, it's kind of giving you're never beating those allegations, mama. It's one thing for your fans to take up for you and be anti-black in your name. It's another thing for you to not say anything directly to condemn that kind of behavior. And it is absolutely your responsibility to do that. She talks about being bullied in her Call Her Daddy interview because of her race. So you would think that a person who experienced that would understand what it is like to experience hatred based off of your race, but it's clear that that didn't extend empathy for other people. That experience did not, like, activate any kind of empathetic process in her mind. I really do think that there's something about Shelly that she just can't let go of, because Shelly gets everything she wants effortlessly. I think after watching everything, her care or respect for Olandria is contingent on what Olandria gives her. And seeing as Olandria has just unfollowed her on Instagram, it seems like that is going to end very quickly. There's something concerning about this that is hard for me to put into words, maybe because Mercury just went retrograde, but it just feels so sinister. It feels like such a sinister byproduct of where we are as a society, that people feel truly justified and correct in racially abusing 2 Black women on the internet for maybe being a little mean once or twice on a reality television dating show. And I put heavy emphasis on that maybe. And it feels incredibly sinister for Huda. And I don't know how aware she is of this, but I would pray that someone on her team would have made her aware of it as soon as possible, especially since it was done in her name. To have seen that somebody hacked into Olandria's TikTok account and posted an image of Olandria as George Floyd and Huda as the police officer who was crushing George Floyd's neck, for her to have seen that and not say anything, or for her to still be oblivious to that, even though it was done in her name, it's dark in a level that it's hard for me to put into words. 2020 happened, George Floyd died, and it feels like the only thing that changed is now the Republicans on HGTV don't say master bedroom anymore. They say primary suite. People are uncritically digesting and regurgitating anti-blackness on the internet in a way that to me feels unprecedented. Like, I have not seen this on the internet since maybe like Shane Dawson was doing his Shanae videos in the 2000s. That anybody looked at that and thought it was okay, you know, because I've hated that man since I saw that shit. That anybody looked at that and thought it was okay, and it wasn't until 2020 that he was canceled for it, is crazy. But now here we are back again, and people are moving absolutely wild. I'm so confused. And the thing that like is hard for me to deal with, like, I'm so sorry to put you on blast, but my niece is sending me like pro Huda TikToks talking about like, remember when Serena crashed out last year and no one got mad at her? Or like XYZ person was making fun of Huda's childhood essay and that's why you should hate Shelly and Olandria. I'm concerned that someone in my life, someone who I care about, someone who is Black like me, would be getting on the internet, seeing these things that to me are so obviously anti-Black dog whistles, and just like accepting them. And not only accepting them, but buying into them. After self-admittedly only seeing 2 episodes of the show. And the 2 episodes of the show were the episode before Standing on Business and Standing on Business. And it's like nothing that I say to her will convince her that there's something weird about this. Or that Olandria is just a person, like every person, who made a mistake during Standing on Business. And that Shelly didn't actually do anything wrong, especially now that it's coming out that Huda is actually, actually was interested in Ace. That off feeling that Shelly got, I'm so glad she went with her gut on it, because everything that's happened since has just proved that she's right. Like, you are trying to make a play for my man while also acting innocent. Like, you're not making a play for my man. Very weird. I'm really concerned that, like, the kids are not all right. That there are young people on the internet who are seeing things that are so obviously wrong and racist and misogynoiristic and just accepting it. Because it's like, where are we going to be 20 years from now if people whose brains are still developing are taking in this kind of content and thinking that it's okay to put a Black woman's face on a picture of George Floyd, not only making fun of the George Floyd incident, the fact that this man was unalived by a police officer, but also acting like a Black woman deserves to have that happen to her. I'm lost. I feel really upset. It feels like I watched a completely different season of television than all these other people did, but I know I didn't. The only difference is that I give a fuck about Black women. I put us at the center of everything. And in doing that, I am willing to criticize us and say, hey, this thing that you did was wrong. I think it's absolutely wrong that Jessie Woo was insinuating that Huda's childhood essay did not happen. I'm willing to stand up and say that, once again, because I love Black women enough to say, hey, girl, I think that you're moving a little bit crazy. I think calling people out is a form of love, not in a sense of like, being evil about it and saying, you stupid monkey, how dare you do that, but literally just saying, like, you were moving kind of wild, like that was a little crazy that you did that. Uncritically following people and uncritically loving people, which seems to be the only type of like love and care that Huda is interested in, is uncritical love and care, which honestly I understand, especially considering like the way that her family was acting when they came on the island. The fact that she has said that they don't believe her about what happened to her when she was a child. Like, I understand thinking the only way someone can love you properly is if they love you without ever saying anything wrong against you or contradicting you. But that's what got her in the finale getting dumped by a guy who spent multiple episodes talking about how annoying she was to him. Like, that's what got her in that embarrassing situation, is uncritical love and care. True love and care is being willing to say, look, this might not have been your season. You may go home now, but maybe they'll bring you back next season as a bombshell. Or maybe they'll bring you back next season for a challenge. You already have however many million followers on Instagram and TikTok. Like, you're going to be okay. At this point, I'm just rambling. Yeah, I had to get this off my chest. I had to put this in a place, like, in front of the people. Like, I have the most eyes, I guess, on YouTube. More so than I have on like Instagram and TikTok. And when I've tried to talk about this in a more like nuanced and complicated way on Instagram and TikTok, it hasn't gotten like nearly as many views as the moments where I'm being like unnuanced and hypercritical, of course, you know. But please let me know what you thought. I'm like really emotional about this. Please let me know what you thought about this season of Love Island in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching this video. Why am I so emotional right now? I think I'm just kind of like scared of like people finding this video and reading the worst intentions into it, when really I just want to speak my truth. And also, like, I'm really scared about what this response to this season of Love Island means for the world and where we might end up in the future. So, but yeah, let me know what you think in the comments down below, how you felt about this season of Love Island, if it bothered you, if like the season and the Huda of it all and the anti-blackness bothered you as much as it has bothered me. And if there's nothing you have to say about that, how are you getting yourself through the weeks now? I know majority of my audience comes from the US, so like it's been really rough over there. What are you doing that is like helping you enjoy yourself? I personally am having a kind of rough week. It is the 10-year anniversary of my dad passing away, which is one of like the most difficult experiences I've ever had in my life. So I would appreciate some recommendations of things that I can do that preferably don't cost a lot of money to help me feel a little better. But yes, that is all I'm going to say on that. I am going to leave you in this weird mood, and I will catch you in the next one. Stay safe during this Mercury retrograde. Bye!